As usual, the crypto market remains volatile. We are observing Bitcoin taking a hit, market slowing down and going down. So I would like to highlight the fact that before this drama started in the short-term charts, I posted this saying, okay, these are a couple of supports which we would like to look at, and right now we already hit both of them, right? As we were going through the first level, the second level, we highlighted the fact it is happening right now. So if you are in the crypto market, then what are you looking at? Yes, positive, the fundamentals, everything is evolving when you have a macro situation like this structure. But the primary question here becomes like, okay, what do you really think is happening? Yeah, on the short-term leg, we told you we're getting rejected here. Then we told you we are breaking down, we're going to the downside. But before that, we actually showed you this, right? One of the biggest thing you need to keep in mind is, yes, the trend is showing you there is a possibility that you may go down. One of the real issue here is that, yeah, the short term looks like this, the long term, that's what really matters. And that is one of the key reason why I actually highlighted the fact that I see a lot of people turning bullish, right? On the crypto Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. So I'm asking that question to myself, like, okay, what are we really looking at here? Is there a possibility of another drop? And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, but we are looking for some volatility here. Even if we want to make a bottom here, we may need a long wick showing everything the sellers pushed down into the market has been absorbed by the buyers. Now, what does all of this mean for XRP? Right now, if you actually break things down, something interesting is happening in XRP. What is that? That is something you need to have a detailed eye on. Otherwise, when you're looking at this dump, you're like, okay, everything is going back down, crashing back. You're looking for lower lows somewhere in 0.2 region. No, I don't think that is the case here. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Like hundreds of people are already taking benefit of what we are doing over here. Going through the market, learning through the market, and taking you to the right position. So if you actually go through these charts, you actually see like, okay, if that's what Bitcoin is doing right now, then most likely Ether may show you something like this soon, right? That's a huge possibility, right? Now you go on Bitcoin itself on a short-term horizon and you're looking at the line chart saying, okay, I'm dropping, I'm going down, right? So we need to actually understand the fact that, yeah, the market will definitely show you volatility. One of the main reasons why you get confused in the market with all these short-term volatility is because we actually look at all these noise in the market with all these wicks. Great. Yeah, it's true. We had that wick. So if we are using that standard deviation as a real wedge, now you have to take in a lot more, factor a lot more, taking the standard deviation from the history here. Instead, if you actually just follow the line chart, which is like reducing the noise by taking into consideration of only the closing points, now it gives you a better advantage. Why? Because if you actually look at this, at least the way I'm looking at this, we hit that level, formed a double bottom. Great. The next time we came back here, that was a bottom. So we kind of extend that line through and we get a trend line here. So this is the primary reason when we got rejected here was like, okay, we're going down. Now, take that thought process onto a daily chart, onto a monthly chart. What do you really see here? Because if you are staying positive, it's good, it's great. But my primary question here would be, do you really see something happening in the market? We are slowly trending down and we are eventually doing something like this, which is going to create a hell lot more of opportunities. Now, what is going to be one of that key region which you have to see before the major panic actually enter the market? See, you can put this on a line chart and say, yeah, I think we are already entering that fear level. And that's why in our group, I was saying, okay, fear is going to come in. and eventually that's going to turn into panic, because the market usually works like that. The pendulum that swings, zoom. It happens like this, right? That's so quick, and the market won't give you a huge opportunity if you are in for the short run. One thing, if you're looking for opportunities on the long run, that's a different story. Now, let's actually use the candlestick pattern to see what the market is showing us right now, right? So you actually see that the weekly is clear, the daily is clear. You got a 4-hour candle close, you got a daily candle close, you got a weekly candle close. So we're going to look through them for Bitcoin, for XRP, for the altcoin market, especially Ether and others, and make a judgment. Like, what are we observing? You got an engulfing candle here. Great. That's not positive. Agreed. You got another engulfing candle. So I'm like, okay, we just had an engulfing candle here, followed by which we got another one, after which the momentum is accelerating to the downside. At least on the short-term horizon, that is what I see. Great. Now that's the daily story. What is the weekly story here? We had this thought process of a support. The price broke to the downside, we closed there, we came back up, retested this particular level. However, we got rejected. We came back down, closed as a doji, which happens to be an inside candle, and now the next one movement is going through. So if you actually see a break of 26,300 or say 400, that is going to bring in some level of panic or fear at least. And then as soon as you observe 25,700 breaking, that is going to create some level of panic. Great. Now this is the short-term picture. Once you understand the long-term picture, you are literally waiting for opportunity. You are literally loading up as much as possible when it actually reaches a macro level of support. Now, what do I mean by a macro level of support? I would say, like, okay, go on to a monthly chart. It actually shows you, okay, this is the range, first leg to see. And if you're looking for the worst case possibility, that's this one. I would say, like, okay, let's look for the median range and say, okay, this is going to be somewhere I would actually average down as much as possible. But now history remains history. That means we need to learn from that. If you go back and look at this range, that 1 month drop, yeah, it did create some panic in the market. From that top to the bottom, you got like 22% to the downside. So now if you actually plot that 22% to the downside, we are watching something just below 24,000. So if you are a little bit conservative, you're looking for opportunity. If it's me in that position, I would say 24 and anything below that, bam, you're actually going in, taking out as much as possible so that you can hold for next 1 or 2 years or even sell for a short-term rally. That is going to be up to you. But now we come back on an intraday chart here. Look at the RSI, it's getting a huge dump. We were actually looking for another thing like, okay, we got a pattern here where the price actually broke to the upside. Are we going to get something similar? That's something which actually interested us while we were monitoring through that chart. But then eventually the price actually broke to the downside. And we were like, okay, we understand the fact that we were making a rising wedge, which is bearish. So once you got that candle close below that, it was like, okay, done. We're actually coming back lower. Now here we are already halfway through. And by the time you reach this range of support, that is going to be a key area for any buyers who's looking into the market. Because I think the trend is changing. I think we have actually completed this move up, and more or less you are trying to put in another structure. Now, you go back on a daily chart, you go back on a weekly, monthly, wherever you want to get positioned. And then ask yourself, what are you watching in the price action? If it's me, I would say like, okay, on a daily, I think 0.43 is going to be something of interest. A lot of people would actually say, okay, that is going to be an interesting range towards 0.42. You get the point. Somewhere close there is going to be a key range. Now, what's the worst case scenario, right? I would actually take a line chart here and say, okay, this is something of interest for me because the way I'm looking at this, if we drop below that, it's going to be 0.4. Great. Now we jump back on the candles. If we drop below that range, that's going to be something close to 0.4. So for XRP holders who are looking to load up on this one, and you're like, okay, at the current price, it's above my average, I'm not buying, then most likely you're looking for something below this. If your average is, again, close to 0.4. If the price comes below that, it is going to be a retest. Now, I would actually highlight why I think so. There's a trend line which I'm observing. You broke that to the upside. The moving average is coming back up. And in this case, if the RSI is about to bounce off from the moving average, I would be really happy to say, okay, that's a good thing to consider. This is a positive note, right? You look at what happened in the recent past. We broke higher. We retested the moving average and bounced off. So that kicked off the rally mode, which we actually did recently. Great. So that's one of the important points you're looking at. Now you go on to a weekly one, right? And that's where XRP is standing out from the rest of the market. That's one of the reasons why I would actually highlight that. Yeah, we had this engulfing candle, but that doesn't actually mean you're going to the sky high directly because Bitcoin is dropping on the other end, right? So what's the possibility? Which candle showed us a similar movement in the recent past? So we go back, and in 2020 June, we actually get to see an engulfing candle here. But it is interesting to observe, we got another dump just after that. But did we actually go beyond that? No, we did not actually go well beyond that. We made that level as a support. Great. Now, if you're like, okay, that's just once, you can actually zoom out and look for the opposite. You got another engulfing candle here on the other side, bearish one. You went back down, retested that range that happens to be your resistance. So you get the idea. Now, if you want to actually zoom out and look for as long as possible, you can actually do that. And only once I saw that was invalidated. And why was that invalidated? You immediately had a divergence forming here in the RSI. And that's one of the reasons why we took our profit at 1.91. Remember back then, right? The same case. If you're getting the structure, it kind of shows you something is happening in the market. So going back onto, say, altcoin side of things, you'll actually look at Ether. The weekly close here is just a doji. And I'm like, okay, the market is not doing much here. But if you actually start to go back in, it kind of shows you like, okay, the price action is interesting. 2 days it's bullish, 2 days it's bearish. We haven't actually broken below that range which the price has been trading from few days. So we're still above that. What am I pointing towards? If you try to make your bottom here, that is positive. But if you actually break this range, and we are at that range right now. So if you even drop 1% to date below this and close the daily, that's going to bring in some level of fear because the trend right now is to the downside. Take a line chart, look at which direction we are going. It doesn't actually look like we're super bullish. It does look like we are slowing down. And if that's true, if the price happens to bounce, what we are looking at is close to 1880, not well beyond that, right? And we are still inside that pattern. The pattern itself is not bearish. It does look positive because last time we had something like this, we actually went up. Fine. So if we are breaking below this, now it's a concern on the short term, guys, because you're observing another month of drop towards this range of support. Now, does that create panic on the macro chart? Does that actually create panic for the macro buyers who are the big guys in this market? I really don't think so because they would be most likely waiting for opportunities like this because what they have seen is like, okay, the first time you get a bounce from the moving average, you make a divergence. Great, you put in a high. The next time you cross that, it is when you actually correct back lower. Great, so the first time you bounced off, second time you're crossing that to the downside. It does seem like, okay, something similar has happened in the recent past. So we are getting an idea that what's happening in the market is something following the stock market, the entire market sentiment, everything is happening. Now, take this into account. That's a weekly candle close day. And while you look at this, it's still bearish. Now, the current candle just opened. So we can't actually make any judgment based on that. But what we can look for is the closed candle here. Now, what's the story that the closed candle is conveying? Right? We are observing this fact that, okay, it was having a short bounce. It's still on that move. It hasn't broken below a pattern, as to say. We are still holding on to this level where sellers are active. Each time you bounce, they're pushing it lower. Great. But then again, on a weekly chart, what you're observing is the fact that, okay, we are slowing down here. We have a pattern where the support range is all the way back down. We are trying to break through this level of resistance. So if you're getting at this resistance, what you can immediately say is, okay, we're going to go back down. We may actually dump all the way back down towards this range, depending on how long it takes to reach this price action. But that does look like a 10% drop in the market, which can create panic again everywhere you look at, because you can actually see big markets slowing down the small markets. That usually happens, right? If you're actually following all these assets in the crypto market, now you have to first look at Bitcoin and then look at what the dollar is doing. Because I believe, like on the macro, if you are following dollar, now short-term dollar is coming back down. Great, you're looking at the support. It's all good in that time. But on the macro side of things, we literally want to see a divergence forming in the dollar dropping down. Because if your asset is trading against dollar and dollar goes down, your asset, the value goes up, which is actually a positive thing. But on the RSI side of things, we don't want a double bottom formation here, because last time we formed a double bottom on a macro, well, literally went sideways for a long time, but slowly grinding higher. So it did go from 96 to 102. So I don't think we're going to break through this. Maybe we're going to come back, retest this range, and that's going to be painful for almost all these assets. It's going to be slow. It can literally delay maybe a couple of months in our anticipated time frame. So if you are here in the rest of the market, you are looking through the entire crypto segment, and you really want to see, like, okay, what the hell is happening in all of these assets on the right time before all these assets break to the downside. You can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below, where we go through all of these assets on the right time before they even break lower, to give you guys the right perspective. So guys, that's it for today. If you received value, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.